carcinoma of the esophagus. We have two most common. One is the squamous carcinoma and other is the adenocarcinoma. Squamous carcinoma, it mostly occurs in the upper portion of the esophagus, whereas the adenocarcinoma, it mostly occurs in the lower 1/3 of the esophagus. Now the risk factors. The most important risk factor for adenocarcinoma is Barrett's esophagus. In this, the normal squamous lining of the esophagus is replaced by columnar epithelium. We have obesity and GERD. GERD stands for gastroesophageal reflux disease, and it is a direct risk factor for adenocarcinoma. Next, we have the risk factors for squamous carcinoma. Number 1, we have alcohol. Both alcohol and its metabolite acetaldehyde, they directly damages the epithelial lining. We have smoking, tobacco use, and betel nuts. They also damages the epithelial lining. Next, we have achalasia, post-cricoid web, post-caustic stricture. In these cases, we have mucosal irritation, we have chronic inflammation, and that all leads to the development of the squamous carcinoma. We have celiac disease. In case of celiac disease, we have nutritional deficiency of certain vitamins, and we have autoimmune component, and that leads to the development of the squamous carcinoma. Next, we have trilosis. In this case, we have genetic predisposition. If I talk about the clinical features, then the patient can present with in two cases. One is with progressive painless dysphagia for solids, and in late presentation maybe for the liquids as well. And there can be acute presentation maybe by the obstruction of food bolus. Weight loss, it mostly occurs in the late stages, and when it is present, then it is an excessive weight loss. If fistulation occurs between the esophagus and the trachea or the bronchial tree, then there will be coughing, there will be pneumonia, or there are other presentations of the respiratory system. Next, we have the mediastinal invasion. If there is mediastinal invasion, then we have symptoms like chest pain, we have hoarseness. Cachexia cervical lymphadenopathy, they can present in the initial stages of the diseases in this case, but there are no physical signs in the initial disease, like in the initial stage of cancer. Next, we have the investigations. Upper gastrointestinal endoscopy plus biopsy is the gold standard for the diagnosis. Once we have diagnosis that is confirmed, then we proceed towards thoracic and abdominal CT plus PET, that is positron emission tomography. These tests are done for metastatic spread and local invasion in order to detect these. Then we have, if it's a resectable disease, then we do endoscopic ultrasound as well in order to know the depth of the penetration plus loco-regional lymph node involvement. And if there is invasion of blood vessel, or if there is invasion to the airways, then it precludes the surgery, and then we will only have options of chemotherapy, etc. At last, we have the management. So endoscopic mucosal resection or submucosal dissection with or without radiofrequency ablation is also an option, and esophagectomy plus or minus neoadjuvant chemotherapy, chemo or radiotherapy, both of these, they can be done for localized tumor, or maybe localized or still advanced in that site. We do neoadjuvant chemotherapy in order to reduce the size of the tumor so that we can achieve tumor-free margins, and these can also be done for the symptoms. But 70% of the patients, they present in the late stages, and we have only option of palliative care in those. We can do palliative radiotherapy or chemotherapy in order to reduce the symptoms, and that's an overview of the carcinoma of the esophagus. Hope you will like this video. If you like this video, click on the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching this video.